Well, howdy, y'all. Welcome to Once Upon a Time in Texas, episode number 114. I'm your host, Michael Mitchell. So, I'm sure a few of y'all have noticed, because it's been brought to my attention several times, I have been off the air for a few weeks, and it's not because I dislike doing the podcast or anything like that. It's God's honest truth. I have just been busy, and it has been hard to find time to sit down and get this done. So basically, my business has grown considerably. The most loans I've ever had cooking at one time was 3, and currently I'm working on 14, which is amazing. I love it, but man, it's just a lot to keep track of because, everybody who's buying a home, they're important. And so it's hard to keep on track of everything. And I'm doing my best to do that to make sure my customers and clients have a good experience and are able to move into those new homes. So anyway, but during this time, I had one loan that was kind of difficult and was taking a lot of my time. And then kind of towards the end of that, I had vacation. And by vacation, I mean took our scout troop to Boy Scout summer camp. And so I don't know if I'd really call taking, 13 scouts and 5 adults to summer camp a vacation. But you know what? It was good to get out in the woods. Our scouts total earned 83 merit badges. We had 1 rank advancement, so one of the young ladies moved up from first class to star rank, which means she's only a couple of ranks away now from Eagle Scout. She's got some plans. Things are cooking along there. Had 1 ATV certificate that was earned, and that was by my oldest daughter, Lorelei. Daughter number 2, Shanna, did life saving. And one of the hardest things for her for life saving, so she is a very good, very strong swimmer. Well, one of the things you have to do in life saving is you have to dive down to an 8-foot, 10-foot, and 12-foot level feet first. And you can't jump from the deck. You have to be floating in the water and then use your hands and feet to basically push the water up and push yourself down. And so number 2, Shanna, has the total opposite reality of number 1. So Lorelei. So number 1, Lorelei sinks like a rock. Shanna, on the other hand, is very, very buoyant. Much like me, I'm buoyant. I can take a deep breath while floating in water, and I just pop about halfway out of the water like a big, fat, bearded buoy. And so diving headfirst is not a problem, but if I stop swimming down, it does not take me long to go shooting back up to the top like the, submarine in the Hunt for Red October. So anyway, she struggled. She did very well with everything else, but she struggled with this one particular task. She was upset. We had lots of discussion about, persevering and keep trying. And it took her 3 days to get it done, but she was able to finally get it done and earn her life-saving merit badge. So super proud of her. So it wasn't all girls that went. Of course, I went and my son went. He was not able to go with his troop because he had gone to the NRA Whittington Center shooting adventure camp and absolutely had a ball. He rang metal, or as they say, they shot the white buffalo. They've got a big target. I think it's like 8 feet tall, 13 feet wide, and it looks like a giant buffalo. But the area that they're shooting for, I believe, is a 12-inch by 12-inch square. And he hit the 12-inch by 12-inch square at 1,123 yards. And for those of y'all that don't know, I think that's just a little over a half a mile. And he was able to hit that. And then a day or two later, keep in mind he's only 13. a day or two later, he was able to ring medal with the .50 caliber. And I believe when I say ring metal, like he hits this big gong, this big chunk of metal, and there's a light that lights up when you hit it. I think he was right at a mile, if maybe not just a little less. And so the kid is a shooter. It was his first real time shooting skeet and sporting clays, and absolutely loved it. So he had a ball. He's already putting his application in to be a counselor out there next year. Just super pumped, super excited. So anyway, we get to camp, and he's taking the shotgun shooting merit badge. And he comes in a little cocky, and I told him, I said, son, I'm a pretty good shot with a shotgun and sporting clays. Don't get too cocky. And he looked at me like I was an idiot, which, comes with the territory of being a parent, right? And so I was down there helping because I'm a range safety officer. So I'm down there helping at the range. And of course, my son gets put into my portion for shooting. And he looks at me and he said, I'm ready. And I said, don't get too cocky, but let's see what you got. And I'll be damned if the kid doesn't get 22 out of 25 clays on his first session. The second session, he gets 25 out of 25, so 100%. And then he comes back for free shoot the day after that, and they had an oscillating machine that kind of oscillates in a figure eight. And so whenever you say pull and hit the button, it throws the bird out. I mean, it could be straight ahead of you, up high. It could be to the right, down low, left. It's just all over the place. And he came down and shot 10 out of 10 on that. And so I had to eat a little crow. And gotta say, the boy's pretty damn good with the shotgun. So, like I said, Lorelei earned her ATV certificate. There's a riding certificate, and I forget the organization that does it, but it's basically like the American Red Cross for life saving. There is an organization out there that does ATV training, and you can get certified. And so Lorelei went and did that. She's been riding ATVs for quite some time, but now she's officially certified and just feels like the real cock of the walk. Weather, we were over in eastern Oklahoma. We were at Hale Scout Reservation, just right outside of Tallahena, Oklahoma. My wife and I had actually worked there in college way back in 2001. So it was kind of a little bit like a homecoming for us. And it was really cool to just be a part of the camp. Not much has changed, but some things were updated, and it was cool. But weather at camp, humidity was the worst part. I mean, we were pushing 80% plus humidity every day. But as far as temperature goes, we had a high of 90, a low of 70. And on our last day there, I mean, the skies were kind of cloudy most of the week, so not super sunny, but not rain cloudy, just enough to where it was kind of pleasant. And on our last day, on Friday, we're sitting there watching. There are storms coming, and it's like, well, crap. Here we go. We're finally going to get rain on the last day. All of our gear is going to get soaked, and we're going to go home with soaked gear. But, if it's going to happen, the last day is okay. The storms come right up to within about 10 miles of where we were, and the storm splits. And a cell goes to the north of us, a cell goes to the south of us. And when I say, to the north and south of us, we're only talking a couple of miles. And above us was clear, not a cloud in the sky that we could see right over the top of us. We could see stars. And so it was very cool to be able to see stars above us and lightning and thunder to the north and the south. I mean, you could hear it, you could see it. It was definitely a cool experience, but thank heavens we had no issue out of the weather. So other good news, we had one of our scouts named Savannah, who was not at camp with us, that had completed her Eagle Scout project. She had her Eagle Scout border review while we were away and was approved. So Troop 2 got their 5th Eagle Scout for the troop since we started. And so our 5th one with the troop, our 2nd one since we've been chartered by American Legion Post 169. While we were there also, just a little bragging, I guess, my oldest daughter, Lorelai, got her ACT scores back, did very well. And then the following day, she gets the message back from the Air Force Academy that her pre-qualifying application was approved, and they went ahead and approved her to go ahead and start the long and in-depth application. So that's kind of cool, and that's kind of her want right now, is to do that. Daughter number 2, Shanna, was also accepted to Midwestern State University as a dual credit student as a junior. And so she is going to officially be, I guess, at least a part-time college student in the fall. So that's super cool. Lorelai and Shanna are leaving for Philmont Scout Ranch next Monday. And so, and then the week after, my son and I are going to go out and do some training at the Philmont Training Center. And the day our training ends kind of coincides with when the girls get off of their trek. And so we're going to be there to kind of welcome them back and then, bring them home. So that's going to be kind of fun. Meanwhile, my wife has a bunch of stuff, and she's going to be here at the house working through things for the Red River Science and Engineering Fair, getting prepped for school. She's been doing some very cool things with Wild Bird Rescue, a program that she calls Raptor Keepers with kids. And so, like I said, tons going on. But, in other news, like I said, the business is going very well. It's growing. But I was actually featured in an article in a local magazine called Wichita Falls Living. It just came out yesterday, July 7th. And it's a good article. When I originally talked to the guy that wrote it, thought it was going to be like a one-pager just about the podcast. And he said it'll probably be about a 20-minute interview. And as we get to talking, he's finding out all these things that I'm involved in. And he's like, well, we're going to have to do a bigger piece on you. And so we ended up talking for about an hour and a half. And it ended up being, with pictures, about a 6-page spread. And I just got those picked up yesterday. So if you are in Wichita Falls, go look for the Wichita Falls Living magazine. It's around town. They're free. Pick one up. There's some good stuff in it. So quite an honor to be in that. And, I guess I'm humble because I really don't think I'm that interesting. I'm not big on recognition. I mean, a nice thank you or some recognition is nice every now and then. But I'm just out there doing good things for our community and for kids just because that's what I do. City revitalization is moving along well. We've kind of been put on the back burner just a little to allow planning and zoning to kind of go through and approve all of our stuff. And so we're a little on hold with that, but that's our next step. City Council went there last Tuesday. Got some good things moving in the city. Man, we have a hell of a new city manager with Jeff Jenkins. Super nice guy. Cool things going on. We've actually got a couple of people, including our own Steve Sparks with Faith Mission, who have spent, I guess, the last year or so really looking at our homeless population here and the fact that it's growing because people are coming from other parts of the state and country because we have help here and open beds. And so homelessness has really become a problem, and they've come up with a very good actionable plan that not only the city of Wichita Falls is bought into, but also the Wichita County is bought into, as well as the organizations around that serve homelessness. And so they've got a good plan. So that was very cool to hear. Very excited to hear that. But, Lorelai had also gone to Girls State, which is put on by the American Legion Auxiliary. And Shanna had also gone to RILA, the Rotary Youth Leadership Awards. And both of them learned a lot more about just how state and local government works. And so they both went and made very short presentations to the city council. And so that was very cool to see, very cool to watch them stand up and do that. The final thing I want to touch on, talked a lot about summer camp and the great experience that we had. I know lots of people have seen the stories about the flooding in San Angelo, and then of course Kerr County, where the girls' youth camp was or is, and basically just flooding there, and in Georgetown. That's just a bad deal, and it floods down there a lot. This was epic, I guess, for lack of better words. It was definitely out of the ordinary. They're calling the storms that have hit basically a land hurricane, which doesn't happen often. And all I will say is, keep those families and the people down there in your thoughts and prayers. The destructive force of a flood like that is just unfathomable. And if you've never seen anything like that, it is hard to even imagine. And so Texas is very much coming together. I know that we have some of our own firefighters and emergency response people down there. So very cool that Wichita Falls has stepped up. We've got Lions Club, Rotary Club, American Legion. Basically, a lot of the organizations that I'm involved with are doing support. But, San Angelo, my wife and I lived in San Angelo for 3 years. The camp, the Boy Scout camp where everybody was found and accounted for, and then, of course, Camp Mystic and Hunt. Both of those camps were not far away from where I did my internship on the YO Ranch Adventure Camp, and so somewhat near and dear to my heart. And so think about those folks. Help where you can. Pay attention. Make sure that you're giving money, food, supplies to a worthwhile and trusted organization, because there's lots of scams out there. So that's all I want to say about that. There's plenty in the news, so just pay attention, get involved, and help where you can. So we're going to kind of switch, and so we're going to talk about, I guess, really kind of close to that area. A lot of where this next event happened was in Lampasas, which is not too terribly far away, and was also affected by flooding and things like that. But everybody's heard about the Hatfield-McCoy Feud. But did you know that Texas had something similar, maybe not as long lasting, but they had something similar with the Horrell-Higgins Feud. So let's take a look at that. Before we jump into this, I'd like to thank our sponsors. That's me and Victory Home Loans. I know there are tons of people moving to and in Texas and Oklahoma, and I know a lot of y'all do too. So if you know somebody that's looking for a home, looking to refinance, maybe get their rate down, which rates haven't gone down much lately, but they will soon. If you know somebody looking to refinance, or they need to pull money out to do work or send a kid to college, or if you know an older couple that it might be a good idea for them to do a reverse mortgage, let me know. Send them my way. TheMichaelMitchell.com, THE MichaelMitchell.com. Remember, as a mortgage broker, I make the process faster, cheaper, and easier most of the time. I will freely admit that sometimes things don't go as planned, but we do our best to get it done. So faster, cheaper, and easier for the most part. Send them my way. TheMichaelMitchell.com, THE MichaelMitchell.com. Remember, when you work with me in Victory Home Loans, we sell dreams, not mortgages. So where did this week's idea come from? Well, frankly, as per usual, it just popped up on Facebook. And I did a little digging, thought it was cool. There's a fair amount of information out there about it, but I found most of my information on Wikipedia, and then, of course, the Texas State Historical Association online, which is one of my favorite websites. So let's talk about this feud. So the Horrell brothers, Horrell, the Horrell brothers, sometimes referred to as the Lawless Horrell boys, were around 1873 to 1878. They were 5 brothers from the Horrell family of Lampasas County, Texas, who were, by all rights, outlaws of the Old West, and who committed numerous murders over a 5-year period before 4 of the brothers were killed in different incidents. The brothers are probably best known for the Horrell-Higgins Feud, although it resulted in relatively few deaths compared to other feuds. However, starting in 1873, the brothers went on to an ethnically motivated killing spree during which they killed a Hispanic lawman and a white lawman in New Mexico. They killed 11 other Hispanic men and wounded one Hispanic woman. The brothers had previously killed 5 lawmen in Texas. So, not good dudes. So let's look at a little bit of background. So the Horrell and Higgins families had both settled in the Lampasas County area several years before the American Civil War. By all accounts, the two families actually got along very well, famously, in fact, for over a decade. However, by the early 1870s, the Horrell brothers, Mart, Tom, Merritt, Ben, and Sam, were involved in numerous lawless activities. In January 1873, Lampasas County Sheriff Shadrach T. Denson attempted to arrest 2 brothers, Wash and Mark Short, but was impeded by the Horrell brothers. So they were trying to arrest 2 brothers, Wash and Mark Short, but the Horrell brothers stepped in, which resulted in a gunfight, and nobody knows why the Horrell brothers stepped in, but it resulted in a gunfight with Sheriff Denison being shot, but he did recover. The county judge appealed to Governor Edmund J. Davis for help, and this prompted the Texas State Police to dispatch a number of lawmen to settle things down. On February 10, 1873, Governor Davis issued an order prohibiting the carrying of firearms inside the town limits of Lampasas, Texas. 7 state police arrived shortly thereafter under the command of Captain Thomas Williams. On March 14, 1873, state officers Wesley Cherry, Jim Daniels, and Andrew Melville arrested Bill Bowen, a brother-in-law of the Horrell brothers, for carrying of firearms. So this wasn't the Horrell brothers, this was a brother-in-law. The officers then entered Jerry Scott's saloon with Bowen in tow. No idea why they went into the saloon. After a verbal exchange with the Horrell brothers, maybe that's why they went into the saloon, who were inside the saloon, a gunfight ensued. Why not? We've arrested the brother-in-law. Let's go into the saloon where these guys are, I don't know, probably drinking, and, see if they'll give up their guns. They don't. They start shooting. So the gunfight ensues, and it leaves 4 of the 7 officers dead, including Captain Williams. Captain Williams shot and badly wounded Mart Horrell, and Tom Horrell was also wounded. Sounds like not good police work when it comes to bad dudes. So following the gunfight, several more state police were sent to the county. No kidding. Mart Horrell and 3 friends were quickly arrested and taken to Georgetown, Texas jail. However, more than 30 friends soon broke into the jail and freed them. Sounds like they had a pretty good following. The brothers fled to Lincoln County in New Mexico territory. Now hold up. So these guys basically get into a little bit of a whizzing contest with the state police of Texas in Lampasas County. Presumably they flee to kind of let things cool down, and they go to Lincoln County in New Mexico. Like, we've all heard of Billy the Kid and the Lincoln County Wars. It's like, man, we're just adding fuel to the fire. So anyway, they flee to Lincoln County in New Mexico territory, where Ben Horrell quickly befriended Lincoln County Sheriff Jack Gillum. Sounds like a good plan. Hey, we're in trouble? Let's go befriend a sheriff somewhere else. On December 1st, 1873, Sheriff Gillum and Ben Horrell rode into the town of Lincoln and began drinking. If you're going to get drunk and cause a ruckus, why not do it with the sheriff of the town, right? So they begin drinking. They, of course, visit several brothels and saloons before discharging their firearms in the street while drunk. I mean, is it okay if you're doing it with the sheriff? I don't know. So Constable Juan Martinez demanded they turn over their weapons, and they complied, but were not arrested. Soon afterwards, they had acquired more pistols because, it's Lincoln County. Everybody has one. So they acquire more pistols and begin shooting again. this time inside the brothel. Listen, if you're just going to go recklessly discharge firearms, apparently it's not a good idea to do it in a brothel in Lincoln County, New Mexico. So So when confronted by a Constable Martinez again, Ben Horrell gets tired of it and just shoots Martinez. Makes sense. This guy's like ruining our buzz, so they shoot him. Horrell and Gillum fled. Other lawmen caught up with them before they were able to leave town and kill them both. Sounds reasonable. So the Horrell brothers, of course, retaliated by killing 2 prominent Mexican ranchers. It doesn't say that these ranchers were even involved with any of this other stuff. Just 2 prominent Mexican ranchers. So they kill those 2 guys, and that results in newly appointed Sheriff Alexander Hamilton Mills gathering a posse and hunting them down. After an intense standoff outside of Lincoln, the posse retreated and the brothers escaped. On December 20th, 1873, the brothers stormed a Hispanic celebration in Lincoln, killing 4 Hispanic men and wounding 1 Hispanic woman. It's just bad deal. Again, they were pursued, but evaded capture. Shortly afterwards, Edward Little Hart, a friend to the Horrell brothers, shot and killed Deputy Sheriff Joseph Haskins due to the latter having married a Hispanic woman. So basically, this just kind of turns into racism, more or less, and we hate all Hispanic people, so we're just going to start shooting them. Kind of what it sounds like. Less than a week later, the brothers and their friends came into contact with freight wagons just outside of Roswell, New Mexico, maintained by 5 Hispanic men, all of whom were killed by the brothers. I don't know what really spurred on this hatred for Hispanics at the time. Maybe it was because of the Constable Martinez. I don't know. But anyway, the long and the short of it, the Horrell brothers, these jackasses, just go after basically anybody who's Hispanic. And so now they've killed a bunch of people. So basically, the Horrell brothers are some bad hombres. And, obviously they didn't like Mexican people, which is probably not good for them to be in New Mexico, where there's a pretty high percentage of Hispanic people at that time. So, anyway. So what about this feud? So, they've got this feud going with Hispanic people, obviously. But what about the feud with Higgins? Let's get to that. So by early February 1874, they've been out just freely killing people in New Mexico. The brothers decide it's time to come back to Lampasas, but found that they were no longer welcome and no longer viewed as fun-loving cowboys, but instead outlaws. Really? That didn't occur to them beforehand? They killed a few people in Lampasas, then they go kill a bunch more people in New Mexico, and then they come back and, they're not fun-loving cowboys. Now they're outlaws. I'm sure this just incensed them. The brothers were arrested for the murders of lawmen in Lampasas, but due to a local jury hearing the case, they were acquitted. So they were fun-loving cowboys. Now they're outlaws, but you know what? Let's acquit them. So shortly after their acquittal, John Pink Higgins accused the Horrell brothers of cattle rustling, which, let's be honest, they probably were. It sounds like they were not high on the moral and ethical standards list. So the Higgins accuses the Horrell brothers of cattle rustling. The brothers were arrested, but again, due to mostly a local jury hearing the case, they are acquitted. Although things were tense between the two families, no actions were taken by either side until January 22nd, 1877. So really about 3 years. So probably a little bit of boiling brewing underneath, and things happen. So on January 22nd, 1877, while in the Wiley and Tollins Gym Saloon in Lampasas, John Higgins shot and killed Merritt Horrell in a gunfight. Again, no idea why. Nothing says why they got into a gunfight. But remember, there's one brother that's already dead. Now a second of the 5, so 2/5 of the brothers are gone now. The 3 remaining Horrell brothers vowed they would take revenge against John Pink Higgins, his brother-in-law Bob Mitchell, and friend Bill Wren. No idea why the other 2 were drug into it. So voicing this publicly on several occasions. So basically they just declare they're going to kill these people because they need revenge. So on March 26th, roughly a month later, 1877, Tom and Mart Horrell were shot and wounded during an ambush, but both survived. John Higgins and Bob Mitchell were being sought for the Merritt Horrell gunfight, and both surrendered shortly after the ambush to Texas Ranger Captain John Sparks, best known for his earlier 1876 capture of gunman Billy Thompson. Both men posted a $10,000 bond and were released. The local courthouse was burglarized shortly thereafter, with several records conveniently stolen, including the bonds of both Higgins and Mitchell. The shooting of Merritt Horrell was later ruled to have been self-defense, and the charges are dropped. I'm sure that probably pissed off the Horrell brothers, who had gotten away with a lot at this point, let's be honest. So the bad blood is set between them now for sure. We've all heard of the shootout at the OK Corral, but this is known as the Town Square Shootout. So we rock along for a few more months. On June 7th, 1877, John Higgins, in-laws Bob Mitchell and William Frank Mitchell, Bill Wren, and another brother-in-law, Ben Terry, ride into Lampasas. The Horrell brothers and several friends were already in town that day, gathering at the square. Who fired first is unknown, but it is believed that someone with the Horrell faction opened fire on the Higgins faction. That's probably correct. Sounds like the Horrell family was a shoot first, ask questions later. So anyway, it's believed that Horrell shoots first at the Higgins faction. When it was over, Bill Wren had been wounded, Frank Mitchell had been killed, and the Horrell faction members Buck Waltrip and Carson Graham were dead. Texas Rangers descend on the town a few days later. All 3 Horrell brothers were arrested, and Texas Ranger Major John B. Jones acted as the mediator between the 2 sides to calm matters. Less than 1 year later, Mart and Tom Horrell were arrested in Meridian, Texas for armed robbery and murder. At least that's what this says. There was another thing that I found that said complicity in murder and bank robbery. But doesn't matter. Let's be honest. Mart and Tom were probably involved. So while confined to the local jail on December 15th, 1878, vigilantes broke in and shot them both, killing them both dead right there. They were buried in unmarked graves in Oak Cemetery, Lampasas, Texas. Although never proven, John Higgins likely instigated the murders. Why not? He was probably still pissed about the town square thing. So why not get a bunch of people stirred up and let a mob go shoot them? Sam Horrell, the last remaining Horrell brother of the 5, decided to move his family to Oregon in 1882. Probably a good idea. And then later moved to California. And he died there in 1936 and is buried in Eureka, California. Didn't find a whole lot else more about what he did and a living or anything like that. But obviously he lived a fairly long life. Another 48 years past this. So apparently he went out and probably did some good things in Oregon and California, far away from where the trouble for him had started. Good for him. John Pink Higgins was viewed as a hero locally and is often credited with bringing down the Horrell brothers. He later worked as a range detective and developed a considerable reputation as a gunman. In September 1877, Higgins killed cowboy Ike Lantier, whom he caught stealing cattle after Lantier drew his gun on him. That shooting was ruled self-defense. On October 4th, 1903, he killed gunman and former lawman Bill Standifer in a gunfight after Standifer had threatened Higgins' son Cullen, a local district attorney. Higgins died December 18th, 1914 of a heart attack, although another source that I found said he died in 1913. But anyway, right around 1913, 1914, who knows for sure. At the time of his death, Higgins is believed to have killed 14 men in different gunfights, and from what I can tell, all were ruled self-defense. Interesting history, I guess. So the Horrell-Higgins Feud. Sounds like good stuff. So what do y'all think? Let me know what other weird or off-the-wall interesting Texas history you'd like to hear about. I want to thank our sponsors again, of course, me and Victory Home Loans. If you know someone that needs help with their house, buying one, refinancing one, or reversing one, as it were, in Texas or Oklahoma, send them my way, themichaelmitchell.com, THE, michaelmitchell.com. Thank y'all for tuning in to Once Upon a Time in Texas. As always, remember, the stars at night are big and bright, deep in the heart of Texas. Y'all have a great week.